All right, so today, leash reactivity, big subject, right? And I want to start off a little bit about talking about defining the term ultimately, right? So reactivity has a little bit of a little bit of a dirty word in dog training, right? And for me, it's not that reactivity is bad or good. Reactivity just means a dog that has a lower threshold and notices things, and their response to what they notice is what's problematic for us potentially. And dogs that are completely non-reactive are what I call the oblivious dogs, are not nice dogs to train either, right? So if I get a dog that's very, very stable, right, they're dull. They don't pay attention to stuff. They don't notice detail. And if you talk to people that train dogs a lot, the nicest dogs are dogs that are aware enough of their environment to pay attention to details, to look at things. They hear something, they move, they're aware. They have good motivation, but they're not going over threshold and reacting aggressively or badly, right? So there's a level of reactivity that's actually beneficial, right? It makes the dogs nice to train. They learn quickly, they pay attention to stuff. And a lot of dogs that are somewhat reactive tend to carry good motivation, right? And part of that is, if you're a little bit edgy, then you have an incentive. It lends energy to things you do, and you have an incentive to pay attention to detail. So there's kind of a sweet spot for reactivity. So it's not necessarily inherently a temperament trait, a bad temperament trait. When we talk about leash reactivity, what we're ultimately talking about is a dog that goes over threshold while on leash and either displays aggression, right? Provokes aggressive displays, or will actually be aggressive, right? And so most of them are doing aggressive displays, right? They're trying to threaten their way out of certain stressful situations, right? And there's going to be a bunch of variables that come into this. But when we're talking about leash reactivity, generally we're talking about aggression or aggressive displays while on leash, right? And so that's an unproductive thing for us in most cases. So when we're looking at it initially, what contributes to this? What are the kind of root causes of reactivity on leash? And there's a variety of them, right? And so when we're looking at dogs and we're diagnosing their problem, it's important to know where it's coming from, because there can be different triggers for the same thing. Aggression is one of those kind of complicated behaviors in that it can come from a lot of different places, right? The most common, of course, is anxiety, right? So what happens when a dog's on a leash, if they're anxious in the world, certain dogs, when they're anxious, try to get away, right? They'll avoid. They'll act submissive, they'll try to run away, they'll try to avoid the situation. Other dogs, their natural genetic responses to feeling stressed or threatened is to threaten back, right? So if I have a young golden retriever that's feeling a little pressure, it may squat and pee, flip over on its back, grovel, try to avoid you, whatever. And this is a gross generalization. There's a vicious golden retriever out there somewhere, right? So, but if I have a young German Shepherd, their genetics say when you feel uncomfortable, hackle up and woof at stuff. That's threat display. They're trying to drive the thing that's making them uncomfortable away from them. So anxiety plays a contributing factor. The leash tends to exacerbate this, make it worse, right? And the reason for that is dogs, when they're loose, there are lots of dogs that won't react when they're off leash, but they will when they're on leash. So what's going on there? Well, a couple of things. One, frequently, dogs that are feeling uncomfortable, if given lots of room and space, will usually just move away from the thing that makes them uncomfortable, right? But you put them on a leash and you basically block their flight response. They can't go anywhere, right? And they know it. And so now they're in a spot, here comes something, and I can't go anywhere, so aggression's my last option, right? The other thing is frequently, if it's coming from anxiety in those places like that, it's worked for the dog. So somebody goes out, somebody's approaching, and the dog gets a little stressed, they woof, and the person's like, whoa, I'll cross the street, right? Or the handler goes, oh gosh, and pulls the dog away. And so now, through negative reinforcement, just like we were talking about a little bit before, that behavior's been reinforced. If something's approaching you that you don't like and it's making you feel stressed, and you do something and it retreats, or you get pulled away, now that's been reinforced through negative reinforcement. And negative reinforcement is straight up operant conditioning, right? The idea that something uncomfortable is happening, the way we used to teach dogs to sit and down. I pull up on the leash, it's uncomfortable, you sit, I stop. I reinforce sitting. If I pull down on the leash, it's uncomfortable, you lay down, I stop, I reinforce downing. Something approaches you that makes you uncomfortable, you bark, it retreats, I've negatively reinforced barking, right? And so it's frequently worked for them as a strategy in those cases in the past. So anxiety can play a role. The other thing about dogs on leash is frustration can play a role, right? We're walking around our young dogs, and a lot of motivated type dogs are, when you hold a dog back from something they want on a leash, it creates frustration and drive. It's a technique that we routinely use in protection dogs and sport work and things like that to build drive. If you watch us training our young working dogs, what do? We have them on harnesses, we hold them back, we tease them with something, they try to get to it, and then we let them grab it, right? So restraint creates frustration, and it will increase motivation. So if I'm walking my young dog around town and bicyclists are whizzing by, and my dog gets stimulated by that, and I hold them back from it on a leash, they want it more. And going over threshold can create barking and frustration-based aggression or aggressive displays, or it can just be an arousal frustration-based barking, right? There's that piece of the puzzle.
If you enjoy our videos, we post our social media videos to our website, Leerburg.com, a week or two before we post them to our YouTube channel. These early release videos can be found on the front page of our site or by going to the site and selecting Video on Demand from the toolbar, and then select Free Videos. Thank you for watching.